Picture this. You're sitting across from someone who thinks they've already won. Maybe it's a boss, a competitor, or someone who smiles too wide because they believe you're easy to read. They talk fast. They dominate the air in the room. They think they've got control, but you're calm. You're watching. You're reading every flicker in their tone, every hesitation in their words. And in that silence, something powerful happens. They reveal more than they realize, and you already know how this ends. That's what real intelligence looks like. Not showing off how much you know, but knowing when to show nothing at all. In every room you walk into, there's a hidden game being played. The game of control, of influence, of subtle dominance. Most people don't even know it exists. They think winning is about talking louder, working harder, or acting tougher. But those who truly win, the quiet ones, the composed ones, the ones who always seem to stay 10 steps ahead, they understand one thing. It's never about the noise. It's about strategy. You see, the world doesn't reward the loudest. It rewards the smartest. And being smart isn't about IQ. It's about awareness. It's about seeing what others can't, anticipating before others act, and never showing your cards until it's too late for anyone to stop you. There's a reason some people seem untouchable. They walk into chaos, and somehow it rearranges itself around them. They don't panic, they don't argue, they don't chase, they command. And the truth? Anyone can learn this. Anyone can build that kind of presence. The kind that makes people hesitate before crossing you. The kind that makes silence more intimidating than shouting. The kind that turns every move you make into a statement. Because outsmarting people isn't about deception. It's about discipline. It's about understanding how human beings really work. What drives them, what blinds them, and how to make their instincts work in your favor. So if you've ever felt underestimated, if you've ever watched others manipulate situations while you stood there wondering what just happened, if you've ever walked away from a conversation knowing you gave away too much, this is your moment to change that. Because today you're going to learn what most people never will, the 5 rules that allow you to outthink, outmaneuver, and outlast anyone. Not through aggression, not through lies, but through mastery, the kind of mental sharpness that makes people wonder what you know that they don't. So lean in, stay quiet, and pay attention. Because after this, you'll never walk into a room the same way again. Most people walk through life half asleep, reacting instead of reading, talking instead of listening, guessing instead of studying. But the ones who dominate, the ones who seem almost untouchable, are never guessing. They're calculated. They understand one unshakable truth. The person who sees the full game board always wins over the one staring at a single piece. That's the power of information. Not gossip, not assumptions. Information. The kind that lets you predict moves before they happen. The kind that gives you the edge long before anyone realizes a game is even being played. Knowing the game begins with awareness. Real awareness, the kind that goes beyond what's obvious and digs into what's real. Most people only see faces, words, and surface behavior. But beneath every conversation, every action, every smile, there's a motive. People are driven by needs, validation, power, security, belonging, recognition. Learn to listen for those needs instead of just their words. When someone talks, they're not always communicating facts. They're revealing patterns. You can't dominate if you can't decode those patterns. So start paying attention. Observe people as if you're collecting data, because you are. The tone of their voice, how they position their body, when they interrupt, when they hesitate, all of it tells you who they are and what they want. Most people think power is about talking, but the person who listens, truly listens, holds the real control. They collect everything others carelessly reveal. Information doesn't shout. It whispers. It's found in details others overlook. The way someone avoids a question, the inconsistencies in their stories, how quickly they change opinions in a group versus one-on-one. If you train your mind to notice these things, you'll start seeing invisible strings connecting everything. You'll see that people repeat patterns like clockwork. Once you know those patterns, you can anticipate them. And once you can anticipate them, you control the outcome. Think of it like this. Life is a chessboard, and most people are playing checkers. They move impulsively, reacting to what's right in front of them. But the strategist, the observer, the quiet learner, they don't move because they feel like it. They move because they've already visualized 10 moves ahead. And when the others finally realize what's happening, it's too late. Information is your map through chaos. When everyone else is confused, you remain calm because you already understand the terrain. You know who's aligned with who, where loyalties really lie, and who's pretending to be your friend out of convenience. That awareness allows you to maneuver with precision instead of emotion. Here's the secret. People tell you who they are all the time. You just have to listen to what they don't say. When someone flatters you too quickly, what are they compensating for? When someone avoids details, what are they hiding? When someone brags excessively, what insecurity are they trying to bury? Every behavior has a motive underneath it. The one who knows the motive controls the exchange. The trick is to gather information without appearing like you're doing it. The most dangerous player is the one who seems harmless, the one who smiles, nods, and quietly absorbs everything. That person becomes a mirror. People project their truths onto them without realizing it. Don't rush to correct. Don't rush to prove. Let others reveal themselves fully while you remain an empty vessel collecting data. But don't mistake information for gossip. Gossip is noise. It's unreliable and emotional. Information is clean, factual, and verifiable. It's observing what people do consistently over time, not what others say about them. Anyone can repeat rumors, but it takes intelligence to recognize patterns that confirm or contradict those rumors. Always prefer observation over hearsay. Another thing, never show all your knowledge. The moment you reveal how much you know, you lose your advantage. Keep your insights private until action is required. People respect what they can't predict. So stay unpredictable. Let them think you're rawer, quieter, less aware, until the moment your understanding rearranges the entire situation. Train your perception like a muscle. Walk into every room and ask yourself, who's really in charge here? Who influences whom? Who's pretending? And who's being genuine? Start noticing dynamics, power shifts, and emotional energy. This is emotional intelligence, but sharpened into a weapon. The more you practice, the faster you'll see it. Soon you'll find yourself reading people in seconds, and it won't be guesswork. It'll be instinct. In business, in relationships, in leadership, the person with the most accurate information always wins. Not the most emotional, not the most passionate, but the most informed. When you know how the game works, emotion stops controlling you. You don't need to panic when others lie or manipulate. You already anticipated their moves. That's why intelligence feels calm, because true awareness removes surprise. Here's what's dangerous. Most people expose themselves every day without realizing it. Their routines, their posts, their reactions, even their silence, it's all data, but they never notice who's watching. Be that observer. Learn quietly. The more invisible your observation, the stronger your control. Every powerful person you've ever admired, leaders, negotiators, detectives, strategists, they all share this skill, an obsession with information. They ask questions others overlook. They notice what others dismiss. They prepare before stepping into any situation. That's why they appear confident, not because they're fearless, but because they're informed. Information removes fear. When you know what you're walking into, you don't react emotionally. You act strategically. Fear thrives in uncertainty. Confidence thrives in preparation. When you collect enough information, uncertainty fades, and so does hesitation. The person who knows the game plays with patience. They don't need to rush decisions or prove points. They understand that real power is invisible until it needs to be visible. They don't argue to win. They position to win. Every word, every silence, every decision has purpose. So the next time you find yourself in a conversation, slow down. Listen more than you speak. Let people reveal themselves. Collect the clues. Build your mental map. Don't just react to what's happening, understand it. The one who understands doesn't have to fight for dominance. Dominance comes naturally because awareness itself is control. Knowing the game means you're no longer just a player. You become the observer above the board, the one who sees every move, every motive, and every consequence before anyone else. That's how you outsmart people without ever needing to overpower them. Because intelligence, when truly mastered, doesn't need to be loud. It just needs to be precise. Power doesn't always belong to the strongest person in the room. It belongs to the one who decides what the room is about. Every interaction you have, every conversation, negotiation, or conflict is built around something called a frame. The frame is the invisible structure that decides what matters and what doesn't, who's leading and who's following, who's reacting and who's controlling. Most people never realize it's there. They walk into situations already trapped inside someone else's frame, defending themselves, over-explaining, trying to be understood. But the one who masters the frame never plays defense. They define the reality first. And once that happens, everyone else begins to respond to them. Think about this. If someone insults you and you react, you've already accepted their frame, that their words matter, that you need to defend yourself. But if you respond with calm detachment or humor, you've just shattered that frame. You've silently declared, you don't get to decide how I feel. That's control. That's dominance. Because power begins where reactivity ends. To control the frame, you first have to understand that every frame is a story. When people speak, they're not just sharing information, they're telling a story about what's happening and what it means. The question is, whose story are you in? Are you playing a character in their script, or are they unknowingly acting in yours? The person who defines the story controls perception. And perception more than truth drives outcome. Let's make this real. Imagine two people walking into a business meeting. One begins with, I hope we can agree today. The other starts with, we're here to explore whether a partnership makes sense. Both seem polite, but notice the difference in frames. The first person has already assumed dependence. They're hoping for agreement. The second person has already claimed equality. They're evaluating, not begging. From the very first line, the power dynamic is set. The words were simple, but the frame decided who was leading. You must train yourself to become aware of frames instantly. Listen to how people position themselves in every conversation. They'll tell you what role they expect you to play. Some will approach from superiority, trying to make you feel smaller, so you accept their authority. Others will approach from victimhood, seeking sympathy to gain leverage. Some will use flattery as bait, making you comfortable so they can influence you later. When you can identify the frame someone is using, you can choose whether to accept it, reject it, or redefine it. That's when you become dangerous, because you're no longer reacting to emotions, you're managing the structure beneath them. Controlling the frame isn't about arrogance. It's about clarity. You don't have to overpower anyone, you just have to set the rules early and calmly. For example, instead of waiting for others to dictate the mood, start by setting the tone. If someone walks in aggressive, you stay grounded and confident. The moment they realize their aggression doesn't move you, you've flipped the frame. You've silently said, your energy doesn't decide the temperature here. I do. You can also control the frame through language. People underestimate the power of phrasing, but the way you speak directs how others think. Phrases like, let's look at the facts, here's what matters most, or the real question is, are subtle but powerful. They shift focus, redirect emotion, and anchor the conversation to your narrative. In moments of tension, the calmest voice often becomes the authority, not because it's louder, but because it's deliberate. Silence, too, is a frame. Most people can't stand silence. They rush to fill it with explanations or apologies. But silence is a declaration. It says, I don't need to prove anything. That's the ultimate control. When you use silence strategically, people interpret it as confidence. They start second-guessing themselves, wondering what you're thinking, adjusting their tone. Silence reshapes power without a single word spoken. Another way to control the frame is through questions. Not defensive questions, but directive ones. Questions that subtly redefine the context. If someone says, "You're being difficult," you don't argue. You ask, "What exactly do you find difficult about holding a standard?" Now they're no longer attacking you. They're defending their own inconsistency. Questions are the scalpel of control. They cut emotion and expose logic. You also control the frame through emotional discipline. People who can manage their emotional state automatically command respect. When someone loses their temper, they're not powerful, they're exposed. When someone provokes you and you don't flinch, you've just proved you own the space. The ability to stay composed under pressure is one of the purest forms of dominance. It says, "You can't make me play your game. I decide the rules." Let's look deeper. Frame control doesn't just happen in conversations. It happens in life. Society, culture, media, they're all built on frames. They tell you what success looks like, what happiness means, what's acceptable, and what isn't. Most people spend their lives living inside those invisible structures. They chase what they've been told to chase. But when you start defining your own frame for life, your own metrics for success, your own vision for peace and power, you break free from that conditioning. You stop being controlled by external narratives and start becoming the author of your own. Control doesn't mean confrontation. The best frame masters rarely need to argue. They redirect, they rephrase, they reset the emotional temperature. If someone's trying to control the narrative through intimidation, they simply remove emotional fuel. Their calmness becomes unsettling because it signals something stronger, certainty. And people naturally gravitate toward those who appear certain. When you enter any interaction, remember this: whoever frames the situation first wins. So learn to start strong. Before you speak, know what your goal is. Know what tone you're setting. Are you there to negotiate? Then your frame is equality and logic. Are you there to lead? Then your frame is clarity and direction. Are you there to protect your boundaries? Then your frame is composure and unshakable resolve. You can also reset a frame mid-conversation. If someone tries to belittle you, don't explain or defend. Just say something that shifts focus back to the objective. "I'm not here to argue about style. I'm here to talk about results." Instantly, the emotional frame collapses and logic takes its place. You've just moved the conversation to your territory. This level of control doesn't come from manipulation. It comes from awareness and preparation. Before any high-stakes interaction, mentally rehearse your frame. Ask yourself, what's the story I want told about this? Then, align your body language, tone, and timing with that story. When you walk in, you're not reacting to the energy. You're setting it. People feel that. They sense when someone's centered, when someone's not performing, but leading. Mastering the frame means mastering perception. And perception is what drives behavior. When people believe you're in control, they act accordingly. They pause before challenging you. They listen when you speak. They adjust their tone because deep down, humans seek stability. And when your energy feels certain, they subconsciously follow it. The power of the frame isn't in shouting louder, it's in defining what's worth shouting about. The person who controls meaning controls motion. The person who defines the context defines the outcome. That's why true dominance is quiet. It doesn't need to announce itself. It simply sets the terms, and everyone else plays along. Because in the end, control doesn't belong to the one who talks the most. It belongs to the one who decides what the conversation is even about. Once you understand that, once you learn to shape the story instead of being trapped inside it, you stop being one of the players and become something far greater. The one who writes the rules of the game itself. Timing. It's one of the most misunderstood elements of power. People think success belongs to those who move fast. The ones who shout first, act first, grab attention first. But the truth is more complex. Power doesn't belong to the impulsive. It belongs to the precise. The world doesn't reward speed. It rewards timing. The right move at the wrong time is still the wrong move. The smartest person in the room isn't the one who knows everything. It's the one who knows when to act and when to wait. Every battle, every negotiation, every conversation has a rhythm. There's a tempo beneath the surface that most people never hear because they're too eager to react. They're addicted to movement. They think stillness means weakness. But timing is the art of restraint. The ability to strike, not first for attention, but first for effect. To act when it actually changes the direction of the entire game. You see this everywhere. In war, in sports, in business, in relationships. The greatest strategists don't move constantly. They observe, they wait for alignment. They watch their opponent's pattern, their breathing, their confidence levels. They learn everything. And then, one move. Quiet, decisive, irreversible. Timing turns small actions into enormous leverage. Moving first doesn't always mean speaking first, or acting impulsively. It means shaping momentum before anyone else realizes it's shifting. It's making the first invisible move. Collecting the facts, building alliances, preparing your strike long before it's public. That's how true strategists move first. Silently. When the time comes, they're already in position, while others are still thinking. Moving last is just as powerful. It's the patience to let everyone else reveal their cards, exhaust their energy, expose their emotions. When others are drained from reacting, you're calm, fresh, and ready. You've studied their rhythm, their weaknesses, their timing. And when the moment comes, you deliver the finishing move, not out of aggression, but inevitability. It feels to them like you were destined to win because you always appeared in control. But what they never saw was the discipline behind your restraint. Think about great negotiators. The amateur rushes to fill silence with words. Terrified of appearing hesitant, the master waits. They let the other side talk, rationalize, and sometimes even negotiate against themselves. That pause, that willingness to wait, is the move. Because timing isn't just about action, it's about tension. The pause before the strike creates power. It builds anticipation, unease, and psychological advantage. People who lack timing often lose by doing too much too soon. They try to force outcomes, they chase validation, push decisions, reveal intentions prematurely. Every move becomes noise because it's reactive. But those who master timing know that sometimes silence creates more progress than any speech ever could. They understand that the space between actions carries the real weight. Timing requires observation. The more you study the flow of a situation, the more you start to sense the right moment. It's like a rhythm you can feel. You'll notice patterns when people are most emotional, when they're open to influence, when they're defensive. You'll notice shifts in tone, in posture, in energy. When you sense that drop, that micro moment where someone's confidence wavers, that's your window. That's when you move. But moving with timing doesn't mean manipulation. It means mastery of pace. The impatient always lose leverage because they trade certainty for relief. They'd rather do something than wait for the right thing. Power demands the opposite, the courage to wait while everyone else panics. The discipline to bide your time while others burn theirs. Let's say you're in a heated conversation. Someone tries to corner you, pressure you into an answer. The reactive person caves, blurts out an emotional response, or tries to justify themselves. The one who understands timing does none of that. They breathe, they look, they pause just long enough for the silence to feel heavy. That pause shifts control. The other person now wonders if they pushed too far, if they miscalculated. The balance tilts quietly in your favor. That's the power of timing. Subtle, invisible, psychological. The same principle applies to ambition. Some people rush every move in life. They want success now, recognition now, validation now. But moving too early can destroy opportunities. You might enter rooms you're not ready for, reveal ideas before they're protected, or push for rewards before your foundation is stable. Real power compounds through patience. It's the understanding that some victories are worth waiting for. Because when you arrive ready to own the room completely. Timing also protects your energy. When you learn to move only when necessary, you conserve strength. You stop wasting effort on meaningless battles or emotional reactions. Every action becomes intentional. People feel that. They sense when someone isn't desperate for attention or outcome. That calmness unnerves them because it signals something rare: control. In life, timing means knowing when to step forward and when to disappear, when to speak and when to let silence echo, when to challenge and when to observe. The person who controls rhythm controls attention, and attention is currency. You decide when to invest it, when to withdraw it, and when to let others chase it. Sometimes moving first means setting the tone before anyone else can. It's walking into a room and calmly anchoring the atmosphere. It's speaking before chaos sets the narrative. But moving last, that's where the legends live. The ones who let the noise play out, who let everyone reveal themselves, and then deliver one simple, decisive action that makes everything else irrelevant. That's power. Not because they were the loudest, but because they were the most patient. Think about a chess player who sacrifices pieces early just to control tempo. Each move looks small, but it builds pressure. Then 20 moves later, the opponent realizes every step was a setup. That's what your life should look like. Not random activity, but calculated rhythm. You're not reacting to every minor event. You're conserving energy for the decisive move that shifts everything. Here's what makes timing so rare. It requires self-control. You can't master timing if you're emotional. You can't sense rhythm if your mind is noisy. Patience feels uncomfortable because your ego wants instant result. But those who master patience become unstoppable because they no longer act out of impulse. Every decision becomes deliberate, detached, and dangerous. Timing also teaches humility. You start to realize that power isn't about constant motion. It's about understanding the natural flow of things. You can't force tides. You can only ride them at the right moment. Life rewards those who wait for alignment and then move decisively. That's why impulsive people burn out. They're fighting waves instead of harnessing them. So start practicing timing in the smallest moments. Don't answer right away. Don't rush to fix everything. Don't be the first to speak in a meeting. Be the one who speaks last and makes it count. Train yourself to feel the rhythm of situations, to read the pauses, to sense when the energy shifts. That awareness will sharpen your instincts more than any textbook or tactic ever could. When you learn timing, you gain freedom. You stop being dragged by urgency. You stop chasing validation. You move when you choose, not when others provoke you. And when you move, it counts, because power isn't about constant action. It's about precision. One move, perfectly timed, can achieve what 100 random moves never could. That's why timing isn't just a skill. It's the art of patience weaponized. And once you master that, you won't just win more often. You'll win without effort. Restraint. The word sounds soft, like something you do when you're afraid to act. But in truth, restraint is one of the sharpest weapons a human being can ever master. Because in a world addicted to reaction, the one who holds back, the one who chooses not to show their hand, becomes unpredictable, and unpredictability is power. Most people can't stand silence. They can't handle pauses. They rush to fill space with explanations, emotions, and noise. They believe constant movement equals progress. But what they don't understand is this. The more you speak, the more you reveal, the more you show, the more you give away, the more you react, the easier you are to control. Restraint is what separates amateurs from masters. It's the discipline of doing less, but achieving more. You've seen this in powerful people, the ones who never raise their voice, never rush, never explain themselves. Their calm makes others nervous. Their silence demands respect. Why? Because restraint creates mystery. Mystery makes people wonder what you know, what you're thinking, what you're planning. It shifts the balance of power. While others scramble to be understood, you're already in control simply because you reveal nothing. You don't intend to. Think about how humans react to uncertainty. When someone is quiet, composed, unreadable, our minds fill in the blanks. We assume they know something we don't. We start trying to please, to impress, to decode them. That's how restraint manipulates. Without effort. It makes others chase your approval, your reaction, your attention. You become the center of gravity in every room, not by dominance, but by stillness. Restraint is also emotional power. Most people are prisoners of their emotions. They take every comment personally. They argue to prove themselves right. They get pulled into drama. Every time they react, they leak power. Emotional restraint flips that. When someone tries to provoke you, insults you, dismisses you, questions you, your silence becomes a mirror. They see their own weakness reflected back at them. Because when you don't react, they lose control of the narrative. They can't predict you. They can't manipulate you. They can't win. True dominance isn't loud, it's quiet, deliberate, and calm. It's when people realize they can't figure you out. That's when they start respecting you and fearing you. You don't need to tell people who you are. You show them through what you don't do. You don't explain your boundaries. You enforce them through consistency. You don't argue your worth. You embody it through composure. Restraint makes your words heavier. When you speak rarely, people listen. When you act sparingly, people take notice. You turn scarcity into influence, because what's rare becomes valuable. When you talk all the time, your voice fades into background noise. But when you hold back and choose your words with precision, your voice cuts through like a blade. Look at the difference between noise and impact. Noise is reactive. It's an emotional impulse. Impact is intentional. It's calculated. The person who knows how to hold their ground in silence has already won before the argument even begins. Because silence is unnerving. It forces the other person to fill it. They talk, justify, explain, and reveal everything. You, meanwhile, learn everything while revealing nothing. Restraint doesn't mean weakness. It means your emotions no longer control your behavior. It means you've mastered the hardest skill of all. Self-control. Because power is never about controlling others. It's about controlling yourself in the face of everything that wants to shake you. The world tests your restraint every day. People will push, provoke, tempt, and bait you. They'll try to drag you into their chaos. Every time you refuse to react, you're teaching the world that you're untouchable. Restraint also applies to ambition. Everyone wants to show progress, prove themselves, and flaunt results. But restraint means moving in silence. You don't announce your every move. You let your work speak when it's done. You don't show your entire strategy. You release it piece by piece, with precision. You don't compete loudly. You dominate quietly. Because real winners never need to broadcast their plans. They just execute. The problem is, restraint is uncomfortable. It feels unnatural at first because our egos crave validation. We want to be heard, to defend ourselves, to prove our point. But the moment you realize you don't need to, everything changes. When you stop explaining yourself to people who don't deserve an explanation, you free yourself from their control. You start conserving energy, focus, and peace. In relationships, restraint is power. When someone tries to manipulate your emotions through guilt, anger, or silence, the moment you stay calm, you flip the dynamic. They expect chaos. They expect you to crumble. But when you don't, they realize they've lost their grip. You're no longer predictable. You're no longer controllable. That's when true respect begins. Restraint is also strategic invisibility. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is not show up. You don't need to attend every battle, respond to every insult, or engage in every argument. You learn to pick your battles wisely, not from fear, but from intelligence. You know your energy is a resource, and you spend it only where it matters. That's what keeps you efficient, effective, and unshaken, while others burn themselves out trying to prove something. There's another layer to restraint. It amplifies perception. When you're not talking constantly, you start listening. When you're not reacting, you start noticing. You see the details others miss. Tone, hesitation, contradiction, motive. You understand people better because you're not distracted by your own noise. And that's where real advantage lives, in awareness. not in aggression. Restraint teaches patience, and patience is the foundation of strategy. Because when you can wait, you gain the power to act at the right moment instead of the first one. You stop chasing instant gratification and start building long-term positioning. You become untouchable because your actions are never impulsive, they're intentional. Imagine this. You're in a heated discussion, someone's trying to bait you, push your buttons, make you react. Instead, you pause. You breathe. You look at them with calm eyes that say, I see you, but I don't play your game. That silence disarms them more than any words could. It creates an invisible dominance. Because nothing confuses a manipulator more than someone who won't give them the reaction they expect. The more you practice restraint, the more power you reclaim. You start realizing how little needs to be said, how few moves truly matter, and how silence can echo louder than shouting. People will call you mysterious, intimidating, unapproachable. Let them. Those labels are proof that you've shifted the balance of control. Restraint is elegance and power. It's the art of making every move count, every word matter, and every silence speak volumes. When you master restraint, you stop chasing control, you become control. Because the person who can walk away, stay silent, or simply not react is the person who owns themselves. And the one who owns themselves owns the room. The greatest battles are never fought in the world around you. They're fought in the quiet corners of your own mind. Every decision, every reaction, every victory begins and ends within. And yet most people spend their lives trying to control everything outside of them, chasing approval, attention, validation, while their inner world remains fragile, loud, and chaotic. They crumble under pressure because they've built castles on shifting sand. But true strength doesn't come from what you control. It comes from what you can withstand. And that's why the strongest people you'll ever meet all have one thing in common, an unshakable inner fortress. That fortress isn't made of arrogance or ego. It's built from discipline, clarity, and silence. A mental space no one else can invade. It's where your emotions don't dictate your actions, where your values don't change with the crowd, and where your peace doesn't depend on anyone's behavior. It's the quiet core that keeps you stable when life tries to shake you. You build this fortress by mastering one principle. You are the gatekeeper of your mind. Everything that enters, opinions, judgments, doubts, has to go through you. And if you let the wrong thoughts in, they'll poison your strength. Most people allow everyone access to their mental space. They scroll through noise, listen to negativity, and absorb fear until they can't tell what they believe anymore. But those who rise above, they guard that space ruthlessly. They choose what deserves their attention and what doesn't. Mental resilience begins with that choice. To protect your peace like it's sacred. Because it is. You can't outsmart anyone. You can't dominate any environment if your own thoughts are at war. Power begins with composure. When your mind is still, you can see clearly. When your emotions are quiet, your judgment becomes sharp. When your inner voice is calm, no external chaos can unbalance you. Building that fortress means accepting that pain, disappointment, and betrayal are not threats. They're training. Every hardship that tried to break you was, in truth, shaping your foundation. Most people avoid pain because it feels like failure, but pain is how your mind forges strength. Every moment you didn't react, every time you stayed silent instead of exploding, every time you chose patience over panic, a new brick was laid in your fortress. Resilience isn't about pretending nothing hurts. It's about knowing that even when it does, you still stand. It's realizing that the storm outside can rage as loudly as it wants, but it cannot touch what's anchored deep within you. And that kind of strength, the quiet kind, is what commands respect. People can sense when someone has peace that can't be shaken. It's magnetic because it's rare. But there's another part of the fortress, moral clarity. Power without clarity is corruption. Influence without integrity is chaos. The most dangerous people in the world are those who are strong but lack a compass. Real dominance isn't about control, it's about stability. It's about knowing why you do what you do. Your fortress stands not just because it's strong, but because it's built on truth. Moral clarity means you don't compromise your values for approval. You don't bend your ethics for gain. You don't betray your conscience to win a battle, because doing so would mean losing the war within. It's easy to act powerful when things go your way, but the real test comes when doing the right thing costs you comfort, status, or recognition. That's when your fortress proves its strength, when you can stand alone and still feel whole. You'll notice that people with no inner fortress always need noise, validation, applause, distraction. They can't sit in silence because silence reveals who they really are. But those who have built their inner strength are different. They thrive in stillness. They don't chase people or attention because they already have something no one can give them. Peace. You can feel it when they walk into a room. They don't demand respect. It happens naturally. They're not moved by flattery or threats. They operate from a place of self-control that others mistake for mystery. But it's not mystery, it's mastery. They have nothing to prove and nothing to hide. And that's the ultimate form of power, being untouchable, because your worth doesn't depend on anything external. To build that fortress, you must first become comfortable with solitude. Spend time with your thoughts until they stop scaring you. Reflect until your triggers become transparent. Learn to sit in silence until your own presence feels like safety. Because the day you become your own safe place is the day you stop needing the world to validate you. That's when you become unbreakable. Mental resilience isn't built overnight. It's built one decision at a time. The decision to stay calm when you could react, to think before you speak, to walk away when your pride screams to stay. Each of those moments adds another layer of strength around your mind. And over time, you stop breaking under pressure. You start bending with it. You adapt, you adjust, but you never lose your shape. Moral clarity, on the other hand, keeps you aligned. It's what keeps your power clean. It's what reminds you that dominance isn't about making others small. It's about never being small yourself. It's about leading with control, not cruelty, because true mastery of others always begins with mastery of self. Every fortress has a gate, and you must decide what passes through. When anger knocks, ask if it serves your purpose. When fear arrives, examine whether it's real or imagined. When pride tempts you, ask if it strengthens or weakens your position. You learn to challenge your impulses before you act on them, and that's what makes your fortress impenetrable. Your ability to pause, reflect, and respond with intention. You'll start noticing that the stronger your inner world becomes, the less you need to prove anything. Arguments lose appeal. Drama becomes noise. Approval feels irrelevant, because when you've built peace within yourself, the chaos of others no longer touches you. It just passes by like wind against stone. That's what total dominance truly means. Not controlling others, but mastering yourself so completely that nothing outside of you can dictate your emotions, your values, or your direction. It's when your mind becomes so grounded that the world's noise fades into background static. And the best part? That fortress doesn't need walls made of arrogance. It doesn't need to intimidate. It just exists. Calm, unshakable, commanding. People feel it before you even speak. Because power built on moral clarity and inner peace doesn't need validation. It simply stands. So build your fortress, brick by brick, thought by thought, moment by moment. Protect it with silence, strengthen it with discipline, and illuminate it with truth. Let the world scream and rush. You stay grounded. Let others lose themselves in chaos. You remain calm. Because in the end, the one who controls their inner world will always dominate the outer one. And when you've built that quiet fortress within, no betrayal can break you, no failure can define you, and no power can shake you. You'll walk through life untouchable, not because you conquered the world, but because you conquered yourself. Power isn't loud. It's not about dominating others through force, ego, or intimidation. Real power is silent, calm, composed, and unshakable. The loudest person in the room might win attention, but the quiet one, the one who listens, observes, and moves with precision, wins the game. The 5 rules you've learned aren't tricks to manipulate people. They're principles to master yourself. Because the moment you control your mind, your emotions, and your energy, you control outcomes without even trying. You don't chase, you attract. You don't react, you dictate rhythm. You don't compete. Because competition is for those still seeking approval. You simply dominate quietly by being aligned, disciplined, and untouchable from within. You see, the true battle was never against the world. It was always within you. Every betrayal, every setback, every doubt was sent not to destroy you, but to refine you, to teach you restraint, to teach you patience, to teach you awareness. Every lesson was laying a brick in the fortress of your mind. And now you stand taller, not because life became easier, but because you became stronger. Let others play the game of noise, chasing validation, proving themselves, overexposing their emotions. You move differently now. You move with purpose, clarity, and quiet authority. You know that dominance doesn't mean shouting louder. It means thinking sharper. It means setting the tone of every room you enter, not through words, but through presence. And that presence, it's built from everything you've learned. Knowing the game, controlling the frame, mastering timing, weaponizing restraint, and fortifying your mind. These are not just rules, they are disciplines. And disciplines, when practiced daily, evolve into power that no one can fake, no one can steal, and no one can break. So as you walk forward, remember this. Power is not in proving, it's in being. Be so grounded that chaos doesn't move you. Be so calm that people mistake it for mystery. Be so consistent that your silence speaks louder than their noise. That's how you outsmart anyone, not by overpowering them, but by mastering yourself so completely that no one else can touch your peace. The game belongs to the aware. The frame belongs to the composed. And the world, it bends quietly to those who no longer need to be seen to be powerful. That's the art of total dominance. Not through fear, not through control, but through unshakable presence. Because when you are calm under pressure, focused under fire, and clear in your values, you stop playing the game. You become the game.